And we're live.
Welcome, and thanks for joining. Today we're going to discuss how ServiceNow modernized its workplace with space and move management from Nuvolo. A few housekeeping items before we get started. As we go through the session today, please post your questions out on the community page. You must post those questions. It is free to post, but go ahead and post those questions. If you join, you'll be able to make those posts. And also, if you're joining through YouTube, you'll find the link in the description below the video and be able to post questions there as well. This live broadcast will become available and it'll be on demand immediately after following this session. And you can watch this anytime afterwards. My name is Ben Pearson. Also with me will be Robert Teed. I'll make an introduction in a minute. But as we go through the session, we'll be monitoring for questions coming in. And if you're watching this recording, continue posting those questions even after the event. And then also feel free to share this event with your facilities colleagues or IT colleagues in the organization, along with the video associated with it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the agenda today. It's going to be a full agenda. We've got a lot of things to share with you all. And what we're going to do first is I'm going to go through and share a little bit about Nuvolo and what our facilities enterprise asset management solution is. My name is Ben Pearson. I'm our Vice President of Solution Consulting here at Nuvolo. And joined with me, I have Robert Teed, who's the Vice President of Real Estate and Workplace Services at ServiceNow. And we'll be going through a live session with Robert today and asking questions around Robert's business and how he runs his facilities organization and going through a series of questions around that specifically. And then lastly, we'll also hit on a live demonstration. I'll actually take you through a live demonstration of the Nuvolo Space and Move Management Solution and some of the key capabilities that we put in for ServiceNow as it related to their business needs and requirements. And then lastly, we'll touch on the question and answers. And feel free, again, as I mentioned, post those questions. Robert and myself will be fielding those as time permits, and then following up on any questions after the session. So a little bit about Nuvolo and our business and what we do. So Nuvolo, we're a scoped application built natively on ServiceNow, and we focus on key lines of business. And those areas are healthcare, clinical asset management, laboratory asset management, and facilities asset management, which is what we'll be deep diving today. We truly are built on ServiceNow. It's a native application, and we're able to take advantage and leverage some of the key capabilities from ServiceNow. Things like a single source of truth like the CMDB, the workflow engine, self-service portal, predictive analytics, reporting, and it's built on the tried and true infrastructure of ServiceNow. Whether that be security, whether that be scalability, it's why we chose to build our applications on the ServiceNow platform. A little bit about our facilities enterprise asset management system. We have a number of capabilities designed to meet the needs of the entire facilities portfolio of requirements. Starting with things like maintenance management, and that's where you do your preventative maintenance, your corrective maintenance, asset and parts management, inventory management, etc. The next area, which is what we're deep diving today with Robert Teed, is space and move management. And this has deep capabilities, able to handle things like AutoCAD integration and many, many more. Capital program and construction management is the next, and this allows facilities team to manage those renovations, those new construction projects through their entire life cycle. The next is around real estate and lease management and tracking those leases for lessors and lessees and be able to manage the life cycle of your leases. And finally, around energy and sustainability, managing those devices that are utilizing energy and getting that data into the system and report on my energy utilization across my organization. Let's talk a little bit about the ServiceNow and Nuvolo partnership. There's three key areas when we think about the relationship between ServiceNow and Nuvolo. The first is the fact that ServiceNow is actually a strategic investor in the Nuvolo company. The second is that we're also a platform partners with ServiceNow and are partnered as we look at providing our capabilities and our solutions on the ServiceNow platform. And finally, ServiceNow is a customer of Nuvolo's. That's where we are joined with us with Robert Teed to speak about that customer partnership and relationship. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to dive into, and I'm going to turn on our webcams, and we'll actually share a little bit about what's going on at ServiceNow and what's happening with with Robert Teed and his team. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Robert Teed. Who's the VP of Real Estate and Workplace Services at ServiceNow. So Robert, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate the time you're taking with us today. And Robert, what I'd like to do is have you just do a quick introduction and share a little bit about yourself, and then also share a little bit about what you're doing with Nuvolo.
Sure. So Ben, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here and excited with our partnership. I'm as mentioned, I'm the VP of Real Estate and Workplace for ServiceNow. I've been with the company about 2 years, actually 2 years this month. And, we've got a fairly large portfolio for our size of company, and we're growing very quickly. So a fair amount of the work that I'm focused on right now is about scaling our physical work environment to meet the business need of ServiceNow. So the work that we've been doing with Nuvolo, our relationship obviously goes back a little bit, us being a strategic investor, as you mentioned. When I joined the company, became familiar with the Nuvolo brand, but it was at Knowledge 17 actually where I got very familiar with Nuvolo, the product, and that's actually been where you and I had first met. And from there forward, we had a number of conversations about how to work together, and probably 6-7 months after that is when our current version of the partnership really started.
Excellent, Robert. Thanks for that background. And as we kind of look at, I know we obviously have been talking for quite some time about kind of your space and move needs within ServiceNow. One of the things that we've seen, Robert, is facilities organizations, specifically space management teams, are traditionally working within spreadsheets. When we walk into more traditional customers that are managing space, it's what are some of your experiences there? Was that kind of the state that you were in with lots of spreadsheets? And then from there, kind of what made you set the strategy around making that change and now looking for a new space management system?
Yeah, and that certainly was the situation that I walked into here, and I think that situation is pretty common. And I think generally speaking, the facilities and real estate community has been underserved with technology. And so as we sort of try to run our businesses, if you will, within the enterprises, we have to do a lot of things manually. And that certainly is not unique. I think that's pretty universal across the real estate and facilities arena. And what ends up happening is so many of the data sources that we use in corporate real estate come from disparate systems that Excel approach that you mentioned becomes quite common to bring a lot of that data together. And so that was a challenge that we had here as well. And again, that's not unique. You'll see that probably across many of your customers sort of across this space.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense, Robert. I'm glad to see that you, again, looking for the future state of your business and how you want to run that going forward. Robert, one thing is as you were looking at options, right? Because I know you spent quite a bit of time looking at what are the available options when I look at a modern space management platform. Do you want to share a little bit about kind of what the process you went through to evaluate options in the marketplace, and then ultimately kind of how did you land on Nuvolo as your ultimate decision that you went forward with?
So, and great question. And we did spend a fair amount of time investigating really in the area of what you would consider integrated workplace management systems. So the IWMS arena is where we spent most of our time, and we looked at most of the products that folks would be familiar with if you happen to look at like Gartner's Magic Quadrant or something like that. A lot of legacy systems, things that were built sort of in a pre-SaaS world that have tried to become SaaS. And so we got pretty comfortable with the product offerings that were out there in the IWMS space. And then we also looked at some point systems, some things that are just solving, one piece of the IWMS puzzle, things like purely space management, et cetera. And so we got quite familiar with what the marketplace was offering. And we've touched probably the majority of the big systems that are out there, and got as comfortable as we could with what the availability was, how they integrate, et cetera. And frankly, most of them don't integrate in a seamless way. And so as we kind of went through and did our pros and cons on the systems that were available in the marketplace, we kept coming back to some key criteria that I'm happy to walk you through that really Nuvolo sort of fit well into. But I felt comfortable that we understood the landscape pretty well. The other thing that we often do at ServiceNow, because of what we do, is we do a buy versus build analysis. And so we sort of do an internal analysis on, looking at things before we go buy anything, whether or not there's a build potential as well. And so we kind of had to look at that very broadly. And we did that over a period of several months.
Great, Robert. And you mentioned that there was some kind of key things, sort of I'll call it your decision criteria that you were looking at. Do you mind sharing some of that decision criteria with us, and kind of what were the sort of the checks that you were looking to hit as you were looking for a modern solution?
Yeah, so it had to be frictionless. So anything we were looking at had to have a seamless integration. And frankly, a lot of the systems that we looked at didn't meet that criteria at all. There was a lot of data handoffs that would happen. Whilst there was a series of APIs and things that were out there, frankly, a lot of it wasn't as seamless and frictionless as we wanted. And you would end up having to manage data and data architecture in multiple systems. And so one of our key criteria was it had to be seamless and frictionless, which kept bringing us back to an on-platform solution. And so as we kind of looked at the different aspects of what was out there and available, it kept leading us back to the absolute most frictionless, seamless opportunity that we could identify as an on-platform application of some sort, which obviously is where our relationship really got deepened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point, Robert. And that's one of the things we've seen in the marketplace as well, is all those disparate systems either being standalone, to your point, and now you have to move data or put them in spreadsheets, as we talked about earlier, or interface those together, which is not a trivial exercise, right?
It's not, yeah. And I think that makes the integration process as well, and the stand-up process for a lot of the tools that are out there very difficult, because getting time and attention from different organizations inside the company to sort of map all that out and to do those integrations. As I mentioned earlier, I mean, the real estate and facilities community has been generally underserved with technology from an outward perspective, but also inside companies. So getting the resources available inside companies to drive some of those integrations, it's very challenging. And so, that disparate situation absolutely does lead to the Excel world that you mentioned. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Robert, a couple of things more kind of around your strategy. You shared a little bit of your vision. Kind of as we're looking at this go live, which is next week with Nuvolo, do you want to share a little bit about kind of your strategy and sort of the short-term benefits that you're expecting to see, and even some of the long-term benefits that you're expecting to see by moving to a modern space and move platform?
Yeah, so short term is actually, we'll get to what I call full value very quickly, which is to move all of our manual process from Excel and different systems into the ServiceNow environment. And that will happen at go live. And what that'll allow us to do is increase our data accuracy significantly, improve visibility as to our overall capacity, real estate capacity and seating capacity around the world. And then we'll be connected with all of our resident data that we need to be connected with within the ServiceNow environment. That would be our HRIS data. That's things in our IT environment. That's things in our financial environment. So all of that happens relatively quickly after go live. So the short-term value of that is huge for us, because the way we're doing that today is frankly quite manual. And then having all of that together in one place allows us to do analytics and things that we just haven't been able to do at this point. So short term, we're going to get that immediate value of being able to have a better grasp on our portfolio and our seating capacity, et cetera, around the world, in addition to having the ability to do move management and things in a way that's quite different than we do today. Again, very manual today. We leverage ServiceNow heavily in the way we do it today, but many of the processes that we have to follow today aren't connected, and they haven't been viewed end to end in the way they were designed. In the Nuvolo environment, that's going to be fully end to end process, and that'll all happen very quickly in short term. Long term, it's actually that the bar that you had of the different offerings that you have within the IWMS environment. It's really now to build off of that and to take space and move management, leverage the heck out of that so that we're managing our real estate portfolio effectively and efficiently, having really good visibility around our real estate portfolio, and then bringing in some of those other aspects that you talked about is certainly bringing in things like lease management or bringing in work management into the mix. And it's once we're all together on platform, it's going to be very easy for us to extend those things to give a really comprehensive view and a true IWMS approach to our real estate and facilities portfolio. So very exciting short and long-term opportunities for us.
That's excellent, Robert. That's fantastic. And I'd like to hear that sort of strategy around kind of growing that facilities portfolio of capabilities. And like you said, having it all in one platform, not integrated together, but actually native, right? And be able to do work orders and asset management and space management all in the same system.
Yep.
Great. One other question. Obviously, ServiceNow has the HR module as well. Robert, do you want to share? Is there plans as we think about the onboarding processes at ServiceNow as people move around ServiceNow or people leave? Is there ties into the HR module as well that you're thinking about as part of your strategy?
Yeah, and I actually should have referenced that in sort of my short term. So employee experience is a really big deal for the company right now, and it will continue to be. And so, making that onboarding experience for new employees is important. And we are drinking our own champagne, if you will, around our HR product. We are in parallel. We're integrating as we're rolling out our HR product or implementing it in phases, which is how we're doing it. We're marrying up the work that we're doing with Nuvolo as well, so that as we go live with different aspects of the HR onboarding experience, our relationship and our product with you is right there with it. So that as we get to the next phase, for example, of our HR rollout, the move management and the space selection that hiring managers do, and the visibility that a new hire has before their hire date, that'll all be significantly more robust than it is today. And we're doing all that in close alignment with the HR rollout. So that's actually pretty exciting. By the time we get to the end of the calendar year, we're going to be in a really cool spot, I think, with both of those products together and driving a really great onboarding experience around the world for our new employees. And it's certainly going to be easier for our hiring managers as well, which is, we're trying to lift a lot of the burden from them as well.
That's great, Robert. Yeah, it's exciting to see that partnership with ServiceNow's HR module and Nuvolo, and being able, like you said, make that employee experience amazing when you think about bringing a new employee on board and what that process can look like and how simple that can be. Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. One last question, Robert, is do you want to share a little bit about kind of some of the key things that Nuvolo's done as we look at Space and Move and some of the key features that we've partnered together on to bring forward? You want to share a few of those or some of the features that you are really enjoying or looking forward to having as you roll out and go live next week?
Yeah, the native integration with AutoCAD, I think, is probably the big differentiator and was a really important feature for us, and I think that's going to prove to be a huge opportunity for us and probably for anybody that really works with Nuvolo is that particular feature. I think that one's really exciting. I think what's going to be great is also the way you're visually presenting our portfolio back to us, color-coded, what's available, what's not available, et cetera, and creating this real visual interface for our employees and also others that are doing space assignments, et cetera, to really understand kind of what's available in different neighborhoods around the different buildings that we have around the portfolio. We have 80 buildings around the world, and being able to see all that visually, real-time interact with it is going to be a huge step up for our employee community and just generally speaking for wayfinding and lots of other things. So those features that you've been able to deliver are definitely differentiators, and particularly the AutoCAD integration. I think the other one that it really benefits anybody that's a ServiceNow customer, and I don't know that I would necessarily call this a feature, but it is a massive benefit, is that the familiarity that your IT organization and others will have with the ServiceNow environment. So adding features, doing sustained engineering, doing any kind of updates or future adds is going to be significantly easier for a ServiceNow customer working with Nuvolo. And so that, for me, it shows up as a feature as well, because now I can do something quite easily working with you with minimal lift from my internal IT organization. So I love that part. That helps me get to full value quicker. It takes some of the lifting off of our internal IT and development organization, and certainly makes my my team's life a lot easier. So I consider that a feature. I don't know if you would put that in your marketing material, but for me personally, that's proven to be a great feature.
Great. We hear that a lot, actually, Robert, that last part around the fact that as existing ServiceNow customers adding the facilities capabilities, they already have the skill set in-house, like you said, from ServiceNow perspective, to do things like business rules, form editing, reporting and analytics, and the list goes on, right? There's no new training or skill set enhancements within the organization. And so that's great.
Excellent.
Excellent. Robert, was there anything else you want to share? Otherwise, we'll wrap up with the this session specifically, and we can move into the demonstration. But anything else you want to share, Robert, before we move into that?
No, I just to thank you guys. I mean, this is a great partnership. We're very excited, you know, and being a strategic investor, being a partner, and now being a customer. It's exciting times for ServiceNow, and I'm excited to see where we go with Nuvolo. So more to come.
Awesome. Robert, well, I know you're going to still be involved with the Q&A here today, but I want to thank you for taking the time with us today and answering all my questions and sharing a little bit of your insights and kind of what drove your business and where your business is heading. So I really do appreciate the time and the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's go ahead, and what we're going to do next is at this point, we're going to go ahead and move into the live demonstration. So I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. And I want to actually take you through a little bit of product demonstration, kind of what we've talked about today, and give you an opportunity to see what Robert was sharing and talking about with our space and move capabilities. So as Robert mentioned, you guys, you know, they're able to take in AutoCAD drawings directly into the ServiceNow platform. And on the screen here, you're seeing what we call our floor editor. And this is actually an editing application. And just to talk a little bit about what we have here is this is an AutoCAD actually that we brought in from ServiceNow. And this allows us to actually bring in all the floor data as well. So you'll notice when we're on the left-hand side, I can actually hover and see the AutoCAD information, meaning the layered data associated with that. So I can actually see things like furniture that came in from that AutoCAD, desks and chairs and whatever was in that CAD drawing. Space data comes in, room names come in. So we have all of that CAD data automatically brought into Nuvolo and ServiceNow that now we can interact with. And this is what's great about it, is I can, as Robert mentioned, when I'm actually looking to edit the floor and edit floor data, I can do things like color by. And this color by option allows us full flexibility to color fields based on data. So things like availability, or if I want to show things like departments on a floor, or if I want to show any number of attribute as we think about space, we can visualize that in a color-coded way on the floor plan. From here now, I can actually edit spaces. I can even click right in and modify space details right on my floor plan without having to go into a list view. I can do that right visually and graphically and make modifications. I can also bulk modify space as well. So if I want to bulk modify space, I can multi-select and I can update in a bulk way space details. So think about how fast I can actually make modifications now or review details associated with my space. Things like availability, assignments, cost centers, departments, etc. And the list goes on. The great thing about this is I can also label information. So I can add additional labels. I can show who's occupying space, what spaces are available, what spaces are used for what. You know, for example, shared space, drop-in space, or assigned space. So this is our layer editor. This layer editor actually provides additional capabilities. We can also draw on the floor. We can polyline. We can add additional layers or spaces. So there's a lot of information that we can add to the floor, including things like highlighting vacant spaces. So if I want to see very quickly what spaces are available or vacant, I can do that as well. And very quickly on the floor now I see all of my availability. I have 101 spaces available. So this is our floor editor, just to give you a quick look at that. Another item that we have is our floor manager. And this application is, again, tied right to our space desktop. And what this does is allows floor managers, people like Robert Teed's organization, to actually assign people to spaces, see what spaces are occupied or available, and actually drag and drop users to spaces or move people around in spaces. So let's take a look at a few features that we have within here. So again, the color by is available. I can look at things like usage, what's it being used for, or I can look at color by occupancy. So now I can see things like occupancy data within here as well. So we can see various data on that. I can also show vacant spaces on the floor. So again, what's vacant or available. And then now I can actually look at dragging and dropping people. I can search for folks. If I want to bring myself onto the floor, I can do that. And let me go ahead and bring Ben on there. We'll drop him on. And if there's any conflicts, it'll also flag it as a conflict, meaning that if someone else is occupying that space, or if there's multiple people occupying a space, it'll actually prompt and provide a notification related to that. So we have that capability as well. So that's a quick view at how that operates within our space manager. At this point, what I'd like to do is actually bring up the Q&A session at this point and allow us to take us through some question and answers from the organization and from the folks that have joined us today. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll move to the Q&A portion of the session and see if there's any questions. So let me look and see what we have. We'll do just a few questions today. It looks like we have about 4 minutes remaining. So can we show some of the visual features? I see Lisa asked that. Hopefully, Lisa, some of this demonstration quickly gave you a quick look at some of those features and functions. It was a very fast demonstration. Love to have a follow-up and give you the additional views of that. Any other questions, feel free to post those. I'll be watching the live chat and see if any additionals come in.
So Ben, I do have a comment while we're waiting for a question. One of the things that we didn't touch on is this being on platform is the power of performance analytics. So while we're looking at a floor now, if you can imagine looking at a lot of this data, not necessarily visually, but from an analytics perspective across a portfolio, it's pretty powerful. So anybody that's trying to manage not only a floor's worth of data or building's worth of data, but an entire portfolio worth of data, amazing opportunity to use performance analytics against this as well.
It's a good point, Robert. As you think about space and availability and the costs associated with that, being able to trend from a reporting and analytics perspective, how your utilization is trending over time. Do you need to build a new building, or can you consolidate buildings? I imagine it's something that's also top of mind. Absolutely, and we talked about short and long-term value. That shows up absolutely in our long-term value prop with Nuvolo. That's great. Robert, it looks like there's a question for you that came in from Lisa. Robert, do you want to share what impact this has had on your work specifically with ServiceNow's IT and HR teams? So yeah, it's showed up a fair amount around our HR onboarding and that we've talked about, and we've put a lot of focus on that front-end employee experience. And so right now, I'd say most of the employee, most of the HR IT connectivity, if you will, has been around that HR onboarding experience. And it's been very, very positive. And so I think that's, again, that's where it's showing up the most. I think over the next several months, it's going to show up just around general workflow and the way we all work together, attaching work management and general workflows to this, getting services to employees more quickly because we've got now a visual way to find folks, just doing basic wayfinding, things like that. It's going to benefit the IT organization as they're trying to go provide services to employees. It's going to help HR or our talent organization understand where people are, neighborhood organizations, et cetera. So a lot of benefits are going to come out of that HR IT real estate connection through the Nuvolo relationship. That's fantastic, Robert. Thanks for sharing that. There's a few more questions. I know we're almost at time, so I'll answer probably 2 more, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up for today's session. The next question is around really around the CAD integration capabilities and how does that work. And I'll give you a very high level explanation, but we obviously can have a follow up and deep dive that a little further. It is truly a direct integration with what's called a DXF file. So AutoCAD and Revit, CAD, BIM data can export to what's called a DXF file format. And from there, we literally can bring that in directly into ServiceNow from that file. And we set up an ongoing integration to that data so that as that AutoCAD data changes, we can automatically update that space information, that floor plan, as those modifications are made, as that architect makes changes, and bring that directly in. No middleware required from a Mycello or other solutions. It truly is a direct integration to that, and it actually leverages ServiceNow's integration engine, the mid server, to do just that. The next question I'll answer is around kind of integrations with other systems. Enterprise facility systems was kind of the way that question was asked. That's a really common question we get asked about, is can we tie into other enterprise grade systems? Some of the most common we see are things like obviously tying into an ERP system, an SAP, an Oracle, a Lawson, et cetera system, and being able to push and pull data there for things related to finance, related to parts ordering, related to invoicing. Those are the most common. That's a common integration we see. Another is tying into building systems as well, and sensor data. It's a trend we're going to see going forward, is being able to actually get real data from building automation systems or sensor systems, and being able to take action based on alerts or thresholds or various data points. So that's another integration we're seeing. And because the platform is so flexible and open to integrations, it makes it really a great system for us to be able to provide those integrations for our customers. The last question's around how is shared space handled in these AutoCADs? And Robert, I certainly can let you maybe make a comment on it as well. We are seeing the trend in hoteling, in these agile work environments where there is shared space. And as you saw in our Space and Move desktop, we do have the ability to flag space as a shared space, and we can actually assign multiple individuals to a shared space, or a department to a shared space. Robert, do you have any thoughts or comments around kind of how you see that agile work environment, that shared work environment going forward with ServiceNow, and maybe share just a quick comment on that?
Yeah, and so mechanically, the way you said it is exactly right. We can assign multiple people to a single workspace, and we can also assign people to a neighborhood as well versus a workspace. So that's actually really helpful, and that's a differentiator. A lot of the products out there don't allow for that sort of duplication in workspace. It throws the system into red flags. So that's a very active part of our portfolio. We're very agile, and so having multiples in a single workspace is really important.
Fantastic. That's great, Robert. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining today. Robert, again, thank you for taking this time with us. I really appreciate that. And certainly, as folks have additional questions that come up from this session, post those. We'll be following up on those questions, Robert and myself, after this meeting. Just if you want to learn more, feel free to reach out around our other areas as well. Things like Robert mentioned, expanding into areas like asset and maintenance management, real estate and lease, capital projects and construction management, or sustainability, all additional capabilities that we have. You can also contact our Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing, Ed Han. His contact information is right here. Reach out if you want a personalized demonstration or additional questions you might have. Feel free to follow up there as well. Again, post those questions on the community. We'll be watching those. And I want to thank everyone for your time today, and have a great rest of your day.